Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on episode 40 of the Blowback Roundtable. We have with us special guest Leo Zhao coming from Germany, Berlin area. Are you in Berlin City or the suburbs or?
I'm in Prenzlauer Berg, which is sort of very gentrified, yuppie town. Boring. We call it Prenzlauer Berg. There's a lot of babies here. It used to be the crazy part of Berlin, but now it's gentrified and really boring.
So it's a segment. It's like a region within Berlin.
Yeah, it's former East. There are still buildings with pockmarks, machine gun pockmarks that people have left around the neighborhood.
That's interesting. So East Berlin, I think you mentioned that before, and then I forgot. I also wanted to mention before I get too involved with our topic, just to shamelessly plug your line of apparel. It's called Goods for the People, and I did purchase 5 hoodies for my family so they can propagandize our neighborhood and their elementary school with some Marxist apparel. So I definitely recommend everyone check out Goods for the People. It's Marxist apparel. Carlo, thank you for coming back. We missed you last week. You are looking great. You've got this angelic glow behind you. You feel okay?
Did you secure our interview with Vladimir Putin?
Yes, because I told everybody you were on assignment last week trying to get us an interview.
I'm going to try to hang in there this week.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you being here. And then Ben, of course, is with us from Page.
Hey, you got it. Okay. And I like the split because we are on the cold continent here in Europe. So Leo He Zhao and me are kind of dressed up. You're nice and warm and heated, it looks like.
Fleece is amazing.
Before we get, so Leo was telling us that the energy prices in Germany are creeping up, and it's sometimes prohibitively expensive to keep your domicile at a comfortable temperature. So he's got fleece and a hoodie. I've got 73 on my thermostat. It is raining outside, but it's only like in the 50s. That's the West Coast. What's the weather like in DC, Carlo?
It's where I'm at. It's going to peak at 42 today.
That's pretty chilly.
Yeah.
Still can't convert.
Yeah, these Europeans are going to tell us Celsius, and I don't even know what they're saying.
I'm around 0, which is frost. I don't know what frost is in, but yeah, that's what's
32,
outside.
32 Fahrenheit.
It's getting slippery. And I don't know, last I checked, it was July. We still have the cheapest gas in Europe because of our friends to the east. And I think we did a little horse trading with Bulgaria, which there was this happiness ranking. It got the lowest, and Germany was the second, by the way, the second most miserable place in Europe. And we did some horse trading with Bulgaria. You want to enter the Schengen zone? Well, you better not increase transit fees of Russian gas. And they did it. So we're all good. I think I'm getting some money back in December for the year-long gas that I paid. We have that.
Yeah, we too.
In average, yeah.
Yeah, we too. We haven't really used heating at all this year, so.
Yeah, but I'm not heating up to Russian levels.
The people of Hungary are benefiting from your sane foreign policy. It sounds like a little bit.
For the most part, it's still not free, But yeah, we're okay.
Over here, the prices have not stopped rising. They will continue to rise, and there's going to be a big jump. I think next year. I think early next year. So everyone's bracing for that.
Congratulations on the new federal budget. I hear it's passed. It's beautiful. You can maybe tell us about some details. Now, I think the Germans are talking about, they call it the debt brake, the same as you Americans would call the debt ceiling. They're trying to reform that, basically scramble to get more cash in because there's not much in the coffers.
So high energy prices just disproportionately hurts the poor and working class, right? Like it hurts them. The rich people, they don't care. They'll pay a few extra bucks for energy, no big deal. But when you've got to decide about, heating your home or putting food on the table, that's tough. So it's the beginning of austerity, maybe not even the beginning of austerity, some austerity measures. So our topic, our title today was War Crimes and Wiretaps. So that, is an alluding to the wiretap fiasco that everybody was talking about this morning and yesterday in Kiev. So it was the Zaluzny is the commander of the Ukrainian armed forces, and his office was found to be wiretapped. So there's just rampant speculation about who was doing the wiretapping and why.
That's the wiretap fragment of it. That's for sure. Yeah.
Most people are assuming it was Zelensky. Is that where we're thinking too?
Well,
yeah.
I'd second that because there's definitely palace intrigue. I mean, Zelensky is in a very tough position. I mean, he summoned, Zaluzhny like last week, and he said, no, I'm not appearing in front of you and your guys. So there's a big, that is, you can take that as a treason, not obeying the actual commander-in-chief of the nation. But he said, hey, you got away with it, fine. Now, he did an interview where he said, I'm not going to, to script the actions that I'm planning on the thing because this is war and not a movie, which is interesting because the whole counteroffensive was he told us exactly where we were going to go, what he's going to take. There's that. But there was also Kirill Budanov, right? Or Kirill, whatever. He's the head of the GUR, the military intelligence, whose wife got heavy metal poisoned by someone. So there's all these. I think a lot of people in the halls of power in Kiev are looking, behind their shoulders. But all I can do is guess. I mean, who knows? And of course, there's the foreign players. I can't discount them who want to know what the fuck's going on.
What's that German term we get for enjoying that kind of dysfunction? Schadenfreude?
Schadenfreude.
Yeah.
The joy in loss, the joy in pain.
I definitely am enjoying
someone else's pain.
Someone else. The other half of our title is, of course, War Crimes, which references what the continued atrocities in Gaza. So total deaths are almost hitting 30,000, right?
Yeah, we're about there.
Children is 10,000.
About there, I'd say. Yeah, my latest info was from the 17th, so 2 days ago. But it's probably risen from them because the bombing never stops. It's I think 3 Hiroshimas worth of dumb bombs, not atomic bombs, but that's what's dropped in this tiny, 2 Central Parks worth of area. It's terrible, and the news keeps coming out. There's UN people, 220 doctors, medical personnel. We're about 80 or 90, no, beyond 80 journalists. It's Al Jazeera, it's Reuters. So people are, the French are having an panic attack because the foreign ministry, one of their officials, got killed in this shit. And it's getting to be a little bit too much for, well, at least some leaders here in Europe, but only token saying this and that. But, it continues unabated.
And the U.S. is not happy with Israel, but they're not displeased enough to stop facilitating it by giving them all the bombs and weapons they need to continue.
That's what it looks like. I mean, they sent Austin there. Like he'll tell you guys what to do. But the interesting thing is not really through diplomacy, but through the news, like Haaretz and Times of Israel. They give out headlines like, "We urge the Americans not to talk of a 2-state solution. We're going to finish the job. We can turn Beirut." Lebanon into Gaza. It's just they're off the leash. I mean, the US probably believes in controlled chaos, but I think it's getting to the point where nobody can control this anymore. And then on top of that, we have the Houthi, Johnny Houthi, the what do you call it, Ansar Allah movement seizing somewhere between 5 and 15 ships. It's very difficult seizing and attacking to follow that, and that garnering a response. So plenty of stuff going on. I wonder where to attack from, what to get into there.
Well, that's the question.
Yeah, they need an alliance of 10 countries. Why did they name it prosperity protection? What the fuck is that? Protecting Israel's prosperity, I guess.
I don't think it's about Israel. I think it's much more about other players. This is the main connective route between Europe and Asia.
Right.
I mean, we could bring up a map if you please. So basically, what we're talking about, and I'll give you the 10-player, Operation Prosperity Guardian, or what was that? So this here, as you can see, I think this is what you will now see my cursor. This is the Red Sea, okay? Here's Yemen, here's Djibouti, the one Chinese foreign base in the world. That's the Bab el Mandeb Strait. That's the Suez Canal. This is where most of the traffic went through. And a whole lot of shipping companies, Europeans, Americans, Canadians, Israelis, said we're abandoning the Red Sea, going all the way around Africa. That increased prices. I mean, I got current information from that Israeli one where one container shipping cost went from $100 to $400. So that's kind of what you can imagine if you order something on Alibaba, or stuff like that. That's going to be added to your costs. And I think Bloomberg just came out today with something like 53% of the container traffic in the world is affected by this. So they had to step in. This is a major artery. The tanking people, gas and oil giants, the Chinese, they did something special. They didn't say we're going to avoid the Red Sea. They say we're going to avoid all trade with Israel. This was COSCO, a long one, which is from Taiwan, and a third one, 3 Chinese companies. And I think that means they've pretty much got safe passage because the Houthis are not going to attack them. They absolutely noted they're going to attack anybody heading to and from the Israeli ports. So there's a wonderful game being played here. But yes, the US managed to get its coalition of the unwilling, which is based. Yeah.
Okay. I was just going to say, so this is a great map. And looking at this map, it's very easy to see why Yemen was on the table for regime change not too long ago, right? So the West really wanted this very strategic, corner of land here that can really block, transit, but through the Red Sea, and then Iran, of course, is. It doesn't say Hormuz, but Hormuz is like right there.
That's the Strait of Hormuz right there.
Yeah.
And that's where the Eisenhower was. They sent it into the Persian Gulf. And like a couple of days ago, they sent it out basically to the Gulf of Aden and going to the Red Sea to take care of the Houthi situation. But basically, I watched an interview with Professor Mohammed Marandi. I don't know if you know him, a scholar, Iranian scholar he had with Alexander Mercouris. And he was it's so changed. Like, how does Iran, the leadership, feel about this American aircraft carrier? And it was such a shocking answer, saying, you think that you're coming here to threaten us. You're coming into the range of our weapons. It looks old. It looks 1950s. You're not threatening us. You're coming into danger. And they sent it out, and they obeyed every order given by Iran.
Yeah, he said that Iran doesn't feel threatened. If the U.S. was actually going to attack Iran, they would move the aircraft carrier out before they attack. So the aircraft being there means they're not going to attack because
they're in the range of
their aircraft carrier would just get destroyed. But you can see how unhappy the United States is not controlling the governments of Yemen, which is very strategically located, and Iran, which is also strategically located when we're talking about, corridors for, global energy transportation. So these are just really, Go ahead.
Let me list you some of basically the cowardly Arab states. So Egypt here, that is the Sinai Peninsula where the Israelis want to dump everybody from Gaza. They want them to live here in the absolute desert. Saudis, this little peninsula, that is Qatar, and that little island is Bahrain that we'll get back to. UAE, Oman, Yemen, Iraq, this is the resistance. So Iran, Iraq, Syria, that's Jordan, another traitorous region. And then that's the West Bank. That little thing is Gaza, and that little thing is Lebanon. Okay, that's your basic show of force. And what fucking Americans got together was this coalition of the unwilling with 8 losers. Lily white European losers of the Ukraine war, which I think is fantastic. So it's the US, the UK, Canada, France, Italy, the Netherlands, Norway, and Spain. Pure Europe, all the guys that lost the previous war. They got 2 people aboard. One of them was the Seychelles, which you can't see here because it's way down below the equatorial line, east of Africa. And what's interesting is about that, it has an island, and I'm just gonna. It's not Prosperity. Let me find it for a second. Assumption Island, where there's a joint Indian Seychelles naval base, so they had to get that in, and that little island of Bahrain, like 1.5 million people, but that's where the CENTCOM base is for the U.S. Navy. So that's all. It's the lily white European vassals, and they got 2. None of the actual Arab states got into this. No one from the region got into this, and I think that's a huge failure in and of itself. Not just symbolic, but I think practical. It could turn practical, especially given the region. I mean, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Yemen is not like that's what's beautiful about it. There's port of Sana'a right down there, and that's that's civilian. And the Houthis are in the desert. They're underground. They're exactly like the resistance in Gaza. I mean, not much is gonna the aircraft carrier is not gonna do much to deter them, I think.
In addition, Sudan is a hot spot, and you wonder why Sudan is always coming up in the news, and Somalia coming up in the news, because again, their coastline is very, has a lot of geostrategic importance because they're right on the coast of this energy corridor.
Yeah.
So doesn't China, don't they have a foreign military base in Somalia?
Nope, that little thing is Djibouti. So where my cursor is, this is Somalia, with the Horn of Africa coastline, and this little thing is Eritrea. Those are the two coastal things, and in between, wedged in between, that little thing is Djibouti. But I couldn't fit the text on there. But this little nation is where there's, I think, 5 different foreign military bases, including Russia, including China,
and
including the US too.
Yeah, and so the US. Yeah,
they're almost so. I didn't even realize Djibouti was a country. I thought Djibouti was a part of, but that shows what I know. So, but yeah, I mean, that's why these little poor, desperately impoverished, countries are always in the news. And a lot of times the U.S., service people will be spilling their blood in these countries. And that's why, because of their geographical relevance to the global economy. But anyway, should we keep the map up, or are we done with the map?
I mean, just for a word on Yemen, I mean, they are really impoverished people. Something like 40% live in poverty, 20% in dire poverty. But what are you going to do? I mean, invasion? Saudi Arabia tried that with the sponsorship of the US. It didn't work. It didn't even, dull their spirit. They're the one people, other than, of course, the resistance within Gaza and Lebanon and, PIG, these forces. They're the ones who won't let this genocide go by silently. We don't give a fuck. We're going to take that ship. We're going to blow that ship up. Fuck it. What are you going to do? I really love that they're doing this, because no one in these big, rich Arab states, including the Gulf, did anything like that.
No, it's great. And like you said, it's because they don't really have a lot to lose. And they know that no, big country wants to engage in a war in Yemen. Saudi Arabia is trying to extricate themselves from that war. It didn't go how they had hoped. And I think you mentioned earlier, or you told me the other day, that the U.S. is applying pressure on Saudi Arabia to delay the inevitable peace, official declaration of peace and the peace treaty with Yemen.
Yeah, whereas Iran and its considerable connections now with Saudi Arabia are pressuring the opposite. And basically, this is where what did Brzezinski call it? The grand chessboard. The future is being decided. It's being built in this energy-rich region of the world, and pretty much everybody's on edge. Which way will they go? The U.S. has shown itself. Ukraine played a huge role in this, to be unreliable, not there when it counts. It will ditch you at the first sign of any troubles. And I think whatever you say about these countries, I'll probably agree with you, because Saudi Arabia is an autocracy that I wouldn't agree with. They see, well, this probably isn't the ticket for the future for us, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, all the signs are that they're turning their back on the West, and they're, embracing the East, Russia and China more and more. But, we want to see more of that. We definitely want to see more of that. We don't want to just see the signs. We want to see an actual rebuke to the West, and it would be great, just to institute a peace treaty with Yemen and make it official. That would be great. But yeah, so the U.S. I don't know what kind of leverage they have. I mean, I'm sure they have considerable leverage. They buy tons of oil. The House of Saud is, inextricably linked in investment in the West. So I mean, there's leverage. But it'll see how it plays out.
The U.S. still has leverage, which I wish I could just overlay it on the map, which is a considerable amount of bases and personnel in pretty much all of these countries. And that's a problem if you actually want to be sovereign, except Iran. They're the ones that are clean.
So you're talking about like military
military installations,
personnel,
air
in addition
bases.
to economic leverage, of course. Yeah. Um,
I didn't follow very closely. Has there been increased attacks on those bases in the last couple of weeks? Because
In
there was
Iraq, that's
in Syria and Iraq. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I think the US summed it up, but they're very quiet about this. But I found one article that summed it up like it's above 60 when you put Syria and Iraq together, which are occupied, but nobody's spelling that out. I love it when they say, occupied Crimea. They always have to say occupied Crimea because it's Russian, but they never say occupied Syria or occupied Gaza or occupied West Bank. But yeah, Syria, a large part, like a third of eastern Syria, pretty much here is occupied. That's where all the fertile land, so the grains are, and the oil, and large parts of Iraq. But they're like pebbles in the ocean, very like isolated little US bases there for the oil, as Donald Trump said. And it hasn't been a coordinated big ground sweeping offensive from the resistance, but there's definitely been a lot of pinpricks just to keep the attention, keep the force there.
Yeah, definitely increased levels of attacks, harassment. But yeah, I think both sides are moderating because I think there's a reticence to escalate, on both sides. And but yeah, things can easily spin out of control, and there's definitely forces in the West that want things to spin out of control, right? There's definitely a lot of people in the West that want to see the U.S. in a hot war with Iran. And they don't care. They don't care that it would mean the end of the Western imperialism because they're weapons manufacturers. For them personally, they'll be okay, and they'll be able to be just fine even if the global economy gets destroyed. There'll be so many opportunities for rich people when the global economy collapses. I mean, the opportunities would be amazing. Anyway, that's how they think. Yeah.
These people, mostly television personalities who answer to these kinds of the MIC craze. John Bolton is a good example. He said, bomb Iran, we have to bomb Iran now. I think the people behind him know that, pretty much the US is energy sovereign. Europe is not. So you guys will still have oil and gas. You're still a major player in that.
It's not to say we won't get austerity shoved down our throats as well, but definitely not nearly as bad as Europe, and not nearly as bad as Eastern Europe.
True. But what they will lose control of, not the MIC, but the actual, the US imperialists will lose control of the energy arteries of the world. They have to control that. It has to go in American dollars. It has to go in agreed upon American ways. And that goes up. Well, that's the future that's struggling to be born, I'd say.
Yep, global economic hegemony is definitely being threatened. Thank goodness.
Yeah. They have to be cleared out of West Asia or Middle East, depends on who you're talking to. But the question is just the process. How violent will it get? How destructive? That's what's on my mind.
Well, that's the big question, and that's what we have a lot of speculation about. I'm optimistic, but at the same time, my optimism isn't 100%.
Yeah, and we have yet to see, because this Operation Prosperity Guardian, that's an escalation. We have yet to see what that will do or cause. I don't know.
You want to talk about that a little bit? What exactly? So that's the name of the operation to protect those energy corridors, right?
Yeah, the shipping lanes.
And you said that was 8 countries.
Well, 10.
10.
Eight reflexive, the bleedy white US plus vessels, and 2 sort of token brown people, the Seychelles and Bahrain.
And what is the statement? What is the press briefing behind the point of that operation? It's just to ensure commercial transit, safe commercial transit.
That's what, they always, security of navigation. I think they always call upon that, which is interesting because the US never signed that UN treaty.
So, I mean, they're hoping that they can stop the Yemeni blockade of the container ships going to Israel. So, Yemen right now has stopped any kind of commerce traveling past their coast going to Israel. They've interdicted, you said, anywhere between 5 and 15 commercial ships, and so this operation is designed to put an end to that, allegedly.
Yeah, I have no idea how, because you need a hell of a lot of ships to just ferry them all one by one all across. I mean, do you have any idea how many ships travel through this? It's like seriously thousands a year. A lot of ships. I don't
and
know.
it sounds like you're going to be giving, Yemen a lot of targets, right? A lot of military targets to hit. But yeah, that's definitely something to watch and keep our eye on as that plays out. It's definitely can be seen as an escalation, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, already sent the oil and gas prices way back up again. They were crashing because demand was crashing. As Leo said, the news is all about the COVID funding ending and the high interest rates. Nothing to do, with the US printing huge amounts of money and a major artery in global energy trade being blocked, which I think has more to do with it. But yeah, there's an enormous amount of panic currently that in the EU Western press, the kind of outlets like Financial Times, Economist, the Times of London, Bloomberg, these kinds of places, enormous. About energy, about prices, and about also about Trump. Carlo will be happy to know that Putin is just waiting for his ally to come back to rule America. There's been some articles to that regard as well, but it's all about what if Putin wins. That's what the European press has got.
What if Trump wins, you mean? Or Putin?
No, Vladimir Putin in Ukraine. Yeah. Like, what's next for us? What's next for the Baltics? What happens to Moldova? Like, everything they took for granted, the US is going to clean up all that big bad Russia, now is beginning to be questioned. Like, by anonymous officials.
Is obviously in an election himself, but I don't think anybody thinks that's in any kind of dispute. Trump's presidency is definitely up in the air. Putin is certain to be the president, and even that conflict. Like, I don't think anybody seriously is thinking that Russia is going to be losing that conflict. But yeah, they're trying to put in place, these contingency plans for what now? Since our plan A failed, we don't really have a plan B. So let's think one up really quick. You said the Kagans were kind of upset. You said you read an article about.
That was today's Bloomberg, and it was titled "What if Putin wins?" And it was all about a lot of anonymous officials in Europe who are getting itchy, and what happens next if we actually, there's no plan B, no plan C, and not Robert, but his brothers, someone Kagan did a report like it's going to cost billions for the US. It's going to cost billions for an inordinate amount of time. That's pretty much the ending of that article. So that's the US panic part of it. But I forgot what to say. Yeah. Like Europeans. There's this guy that Leo might know because he was we just learned, this came out today and it's been everywhere. It's a little news clip, but I won't show you because it's German and we would have to read subtitles. But there's this guy, a German MP called Roderich Kaiserwetter for the CDU, and he was on German television. And he said this line to the reporter. If Europe wants to achieve energy transition, it needs its own lithium deposits. The largest ones are in Donetsk and Lugansk. If Russia wins, we lose lithium. Like, he's already speaking from the prospect of ownership of that lithium. Shit, that was ours. That was German lithium. It was supposed to be. And that gives a whole new economic aspect to this, like, almost two-year-old war now. But yeah, there's this squirming, like, why didn't it work? What happened? What do we do now? A lot of that going on.
I wonder if there's going to be blowback from that comment. I mean, that lays it out pretty, it's another angle for the West's total insincerity in their relationship with Russia for the past 8 years, for the past longer than that. But that's another.
On a sane continent with functioning critical media, there would be blowback, wouldn't there? I don't expect much here, though.
Well, there's a lot of good liberal Germans who probably don't like the implication of that statement. So they're going to hold him to account. But again, they're going to be more upset with the framing and not the substance. They're going to be more upset with the way he said it and not, the substance of what he said. That's liberalism for you.
Or they're busy paying bills and fuel costs, which I've just seen that it wasn't just, what do you call it? The Netherlands started first, then there was France. And Berlin, the farmers, apparently, have just taken on a big boulevard with tractors full of shit. Tractors and some manure that they're spraying all over the place. And I know the Germans are not very prone to protesting, so it has to be serious when they get it.
Wait, I thought... Do you mean Holland? Because that was happening in Holland.
No. I'm in fucking Germany, Berlin. Have you not seen?
Okay, wow, crazy! I haven't heard about that. That's
okay.
I don't know why. Maybe I was too busy going to Palestine demonstrations, and I didn't.
Well, maybe the media hasn't been advertising it too. I mean, they want to control narratives. Wouldn't surprise me.
Certainly not advertised.
Oh yeah. Huh. Somehow I missed this little item.
So
It's
what are they
happening
protesting?
right
They're
now.
protesting specifically economic policies.
Fuel
with
prices.
Their manure. What? Fuel prices.
Yep. Well, the end, I think, of subsidies for fuel prices.
Okay.
I'm looking for the detail.
So austerity. Essentially, the farmers are already lamenting the austerity, and it's not even really begun.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to look at it, that's...
Okay, let me add it. Sorry.
There's no real audio, so let me just play it. That's a hell of a...
Those look like tractors.
Yeah, they are. That's blocking traffic. So it's an interesting moment getting into, negative degrees Celsius. So winter is actually here in Europe, and suddenly there's a lot of Berlin blockade, it's called. There's a lot of discontent. And as I said again, the French are prone to protesting everything. The Germans are not. They only go out on the street when it's serious.
Police say 6,600 people, but the Farmers Association put the number at 8,000 and 10,000. All day Monday.
Well, and if they're just counting tractors, that's a fucking lot of tractors.
1,500 tractors, yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, I mean, we have to get... It might be, I don't know, violent, but we have to snap back to reality, where the commodity empire is in the east, that the heartlands as opposed to the rimlands. I don't know where that comes from, but it was before. That doesn't matter. It's China, it's Russia, all of that, the energy reserves, the commodities, the rare minerals, the raw stuff. It was there, and we cut ourselves off, and now we're paying like serious prices.
And now the question is the specific process of waking up. I mean, how do we, if it's possible at all? I mean, we have to try. We have to try to wake up the.
We call
not wake up, but the shift German politics. I mean, the only change, the only hope we have is a shift from within Parliament, right, of Germany, and mainly Germany in all of these European countries. A shift within Parliament away from Atlanticism and,
do you have, by the way, any viable option? I've heard about, of course, the AfD, always labeled far right, but they're the ones who are anti-Atlantic.
No, I don't think they are sincere, and I think the German business community knows that they are not sincere. The slide is bothering me. I think just about, it looks like the only hope there is this woman, Sarah
Wagenknecht, who came out of Die Linke, right, and formed the separate party.
Yeah, she broke away from Die Linke, and she's going to form a anti-imperialist party, which is happening right now. I'm actually supposed to do their branding and their logo. I'm in contact with the core group, and I after meeting them and having long conversations with them, I lean towards definitely support. I mean, I think we should support this party.
Nice. A ray of hope within Germany.
Yeah, yes, I think so. I mean, they're kind of they have to walk on a tightrope obviously. They have to hide their intentions. The core group that I met are all communists, basically. They're all Marxists, and but they're not unrealistic. They're very pragmatic, and they want to position the party as a safe social democrat,
Yeah.
reasonable, not going to cut wild taxes and stuff like that, and more or less a camouflage party. And
So the
when I talk,
business can agree with you
yes,
publicly,
exactly,
basically.
and the business people, I mean, the question was posed: why wouldn't they vote for AfD? Because AfD says the same thing, that they want rapprochement with Russia, and they want increased cooperation with the East. But the answer I was given, which I think makes sense, a reasonable one, is that the business community can see that the AfD are not insincere. Just they will do just like Giorgio Meloni
Meloni.
in Italy, which is switch to the allegiance with empire as soon as they get into office. And so that was the answer, and I think that's a pretty good one. In terms of taxes, they don't want to raise a lot of taxes for corporations. What they talked about is incentives, new incentive programs, where if corporations reinvest in the community, reinvest in Germany, and in the people, treat their workers well, they will get tax breaks, things like this. So altogether, it looks pretty good to me. I mean, I have a lot of communist friends, and many of them are skeptical or even outright dismissive. But I think it's wrong to
No,
pursue
no,
a
no.
pure socialist, a pure like
Yeah.
revolutionary path or whatever. I mean, I'm all for that. I'm ready to fucking die, like literally. But like, uh, it's not realistic. Like the only realistic path is through the fucking electoral system right now. There's no revolutionary situation here. Things are not as bad, and we cannot just wait for the revolutionary moment. Just accelerate the decline and make people suffer, and then we have a revolutionary moment. Like, no, you can't do that. Like, that's not how communism works. That's not how revolutionary politics works. We always pursue parliament. We always pursue electoral politics until our roads are blocked, right? And then by then we have built a movement or a large populist popular support.
You have to have a
So
toolkit, and electoralism is one of those tools. I mean, even Lenin never dismissed that. Yeah.
absolutely. So from everything, it looks good. It looks good to me, because when we talked, um, they spent a lot of time talking about how they will keep the project on course, because there will be opportunists that join the ranks. They have open policy of where anyone can join the party. There will be social democrats. There will be a lot of liberals, and there will be people that try to steer it in other directions. So, just judging from these conversations, I have a good feeling. It's
Yeah.
supposed to launch in February of next year. So,
And they're hoping
yeah.
to entice the support of the national business community, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole point, that they don't want to scare off the business community by saying we're going to expropriate your business and hand it over to the employees. Like that would not
Definitely not.
Yeah,
that would
not
not
a,
be
Will
popular.
not be good.
not a
No.
new
But no,
economic plan.
that's very interesting, Leo. So I appreciate you. I did not know anything about that. I'm glad you're involved. We'll look forward to seeing that logo. It's a lot of pressure on you now to come up with a really snappy logo. But you know, like Ben said, it's a ray of optimism there, because ultimately that's what we need. Like, what are we going to do? Are we going to collapse? Are we going to revert back to poverty and just a total disruption of the global supply chain? Or can we get some governments in power that are going to manage this transition to multipolarism? And so we have to get these governments in power. We have to make an effort to keep total economic collapse from happening. So getting in governments in power that are going to be rational and not just subservient to whatever the West wants to do is going to be totally necessary going forward. So,
And in the
what about in the
meantime,
U.S.?
oh, sorry, I just wanted to add one thing. In the meantime, of course, what you would expect, there's a lot of attacks on this new party, on Sarah Wagenknecht, saying that she's a racist and she's anti-immigrant and she's a rightist. All of these attacks coming from the liberals. It's as you would expect.
You know, the
I mean,
Slovak
her-
guy, Robert
Huh?
Fico, he gets called far right now. He's basically a lukewarm social democrat, run of the mill. He gets called that now.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with all the details, but from what I know, her immigration policy is pretty reasonable. It's not the liberal, completely unrealistic fantasy of open borders, which is fucking ridiculous. And but yeah, she's going to have a balanced immigration policy, I think.
Not like Georgia Maloney, right? I mean, that was
No.
the whole point of distinguishing her, because she gave good lip service and then she got into power, and people in Germany are thinking that the right wing party that's giving lip service to those policies will flip just like Maloney flipped. But the person that we're talking about, I'm not even going to try and pronounce her name. Definitely is not going to do that.
Just call her Sarah. Yeah,
that's easy. Sarah's easy. So
can I pick
go ahead,
Leo's
sir,
brain
sorry.
on something, because there's going to be a lot of cleanup to be made, even if Sarah Wagenknecht and her party are successful. I mean, I know you're building alternate, levers of power, the actual movement outside of parliament, but I mean, you still got Habeck, Baerbock, these Scholz, the absolute worst performing chancellor in German history, I think, broken a negative record. And I read this thing in, I think, the Spiegel. Yeah, not the title. And the Spiegel talked about some unnamed high-level economic official, probably Habeck, saying, yeah, decoupling with China, it's not going to be, it's going to be manageable. It's going to be more painful for China. I mean, that's obviously on, U.S. orders, but they actually think this headline, which got no response from China, like they don't even give a fuck. They didn't give a fuck when Meloni left the Belt and Road Initiative. Like they're not going to miss the, I don't know, Louis Vuitton fucking bags or anything. But they actually think seriously, we broke off everything with Russia, and now we're going to break off everything with China and survive. I mean, that's what you're up against. And yeah, you're going to need a lot of cleaning up, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's even assuming that she can get into parliament. I mean, it's kind of up in the air. I mean, it's looking. I mean, there's some positive signs. There's a lot of in polls. There's a lot of support. In parts of Germany, there's like massive support. So we will see. We will do the best that we can, and I will try to come up with a good branding.
I think it should be pointed out that Schultz is obviously a very poor chancellor, but Hitler was the chancellor of Germany, so he may qualify as the worst. So anyway, I don't
True.
know.
I think this was based on performance and likability. I think something like that. He went to single digits or something.
Yeah,
It's
a lot of
interesting.
people at the time would have been aghast that I called him a bad chancellor, because he did do many things that were considered economically and politically progressive in Germany at the time.
Yeah, I think they would have called him a success until 1944-ish.
Yeah.
So during the years of what's her name? They were spying on her phone. Obama was spying on her phone. She was the former
Merkel.
Merkel.
Angela Merkel.
So she had a very long tenure, and throughout the whole, last several years of her tenure, probably, at least 5 years, the U.S. was working very, very diligently to figure out who's going to come after. So the CIA literally built up the Green Party, got all of their, agents in power just for this moment, So that's, all these people that we're talking about have been, identified and propped up by the West for years. And so talk about cleanup, like it's going to be an issue dealing with all these. I mean, what are they? They're puppets. They're agents of a foreign power essentially, and they're implementing policies that benefit the U.S. to the detriment of fucking Germans. And so, how long are the German people going to put up with that? I mean, we'll find out.
I mean, cleaning up, there's that level, but like Germany's problem is so deep. My God, the entire consciousness of the population of this country and others are completely captured by the liberal U.S. narratives about their own history. I mean, I give you just a short anecdote about how bad it is. At a communist organization, which is a really nice organization, conference. They had a conference at Rosa Luxemburg Stiftung, the foundation, Rosa Luxemburg Stiftung, and it was a particular panel about the situation in Germany, right? And then the people were talking about World War II, and we're talking about history and stuff. And so I raised the question, like, how come no one's talking about the U.S. having funded the Nazis in order to destroy German communism and to build a bulwark against Russia, against the Soviet Union? How come people don't talk about Standard Oil supplying the Nazi war machine with 70% of his energy needs in the first years of the war? And the UK cannot sit back and allow their neighbor, very powerful country, to go communist. And she was a leader in the DKP, in the German Communist Party. The leader, one of the leaders. She's not a leader. Anyway, she was representing them, and she flat out told me, "You have wrong information."
Holy shit!
Holy shit! Yeah, precisely. I was like shocked.
Quick interjection. Do you want to say who said that exact line, like in the last couple of days? As in, do you remember how the US was funding Germany against the Soviets? How they wanted the Soviets to destroy the Germans, and then they could come in and swoop in and grab everybody, and that the show trials, he called them, at Nuremberg with those Nazis who wouldn't serve the US, because those who would serve, they were comfortably reinstated in the West. You know who said that? That was Bashar al-Assad. Assad,
oh, wow.
the leader of Syria, said that to Parliament.
He's a smart man.
Recent days, like, amazing that in Germany, people don't seem to be like they seem to be oblivious.
People are completely oblivious. Even the fucking communists, deny this. It's absolutely, it's so fucked.
Tell me,
never mind comment. Sorry.
Just a quick one. I think I read or saw this somewhere, maybe on a Russian Telegram or something, that there's a big monument or bust, like a statue, to Ernst Thälmann, who was the founder of the Communist Party of Germany, that's being brought down. I think it was because the Russians made it. No,
that's right next to where I live. That's like literally across the street from me.
I don't think there's just one though.
Yeah. But there's a big one, like the main one.
But that's not coming down.
No, they wanted to. But through petitions or whatever mechanism, it was stopped. I think they are not going to. The plan was to melt it down, the steel, and use it to build weapons for Ukraine.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but I remember that. But that's like older. I think I read this last week or something.
Oh maybe really? There's another attempt.
It might have been another monument, not the big one.
Anti-communism is just completely ingrained in the people here. Last week I met this anarchist guy. Anarchists are fucking stupid these days. But anyway, the commonly accepted notion is that Stalin was aligned with Hitler, and the Soviet Union was on the side of the Third Reich, and they made a pact that they were going to take over the world together. And they only fought back when they were invaded by Nazi Germany. And that it was the USA that saved Europe from fascism. Like, this is like literally commonly accepted.
Even if
go ahead.
You go. Even if I get some ire from the Zeus here, Carlo Parcelli, who I love deeply, that comes from fucking Frankfurt, and the new left should be called Frankfurters, because that is Horkheimer, that is Adorno, that is Lukács, where it's the two bads, and we want to have something else with a little red flag. they equated the guys who built the fucking concentration camps and those who liberated it. They did it first, and they spread like wildfire in the Western left, Western Europe and the US, not in the global left at all. But they should be called Frankfurters. I'm calling that title now.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that at all. But
I know.
You don't agree with what?
I don't agree that the Frankfurt School was central in proposing that what Ben just said, and I read a lot of Frankfurt School. I mean, I haven't, especially Adorno and Horkheimer, and I haven't found any evidence of that in any of their writings.
There's the One-Dimensional Man. You obviously read that one. Just read that side by side with how he was funded, how that guy was funded, and you could see the fingerprints all over it.
Well,
I mean, Horkheimer gave a speech at the UN in support of the Vietnam War.
Holy shit!
Who's that?
Horkheimer.
Oh, I don't
Wait,
know.
was it Horkheimer or was it Adorno? One of the main Frankfurt School guys. I mean, his point was basically whenever the U.S. gets involved militarily, it is for liberty.
Yeah, I mean, I really hate that because it permeated even Central and Eastern Europe.
But
so,
what about the value of their other writings?
No one's dismissing that. No one's dismissing the value of their work. They've done some good work, but altogether, they were like tied. They were married to the CFF, the Congress for Cultural Freedom, the CCF. Yeah, like they were one of the main centers for the
Timothy
CCF
Snyder.
operation.
Timothy Snyder, he's the main historian pushing this narrative. It's a revisionist historical narrative saying that it was the autocracies of the Soviet Union and Germany against the Western liberal democracies, and like you said, they put forth this thing that the Soviets and the Germans had this plan for world domination, and it only ended because Hitler backstabbed Stalin. It's really nonsense. But the European Union itself promotes this revisionism on its website and in its official writings and things like that. But the point is not to personally go after these philosophers, because I think the philosophers, you can say a lot of good about their indictment of capitalism. But our criticism of them is that their solution was AES. Is that right? Anything except socialism. That they did not see socialism or communism as the answer, and they didn't really have an answer. They had scathing indictments of capitalism, which everybody can appreciate.
Yes.
But they were promoted because they didn't give any solution, and for that reason, they weren't a threat to the Western establishment, and they were allowed to promote their works and to promote their indictment of capitalism, because it created an entire left wing that's anti-fucking communists, and that's why we are where we are, and that's the importance of Rockhill's work when he exposes that and sees that this whole ideology of this anti-communist leftist ideology was promoted and funded because of its lack of
class-based
lack
politics.
of teeth. Yeah.
I mean, when you say
class-based politics, the thing was to move the focus of leftism from class-based popular movement building and also struggle to language, to signification, to semiotics, to
identity.
gender.
Identity politics came from there. Yes, what do you call it?
I mean,
intersectionality began there as well.
Absolutely. A little bit later, intersectionality was the 80s, but that's definitely an extension. It had roots, definitely. It's an extension of that historical process of the Cold War, right? And not only the Frankfurt School, the New York School, Paris School, the French structuralist, post-structuralist, like all of them were, like, a historian says very clearly, hardly any names in post-war intelligentsia, thinkers and shakers in Europe or the United States were not on the payroll of the CIA. hardly any names that we recognize. Hannah Arendt, George Orwell, of course, these are the obvious ones, but literally all of them were funded by the CCF, which is a CIA.
I just
You
want to
guys
quickly.
are attacking a sick man. So just
No, I want to stand up for Carlo
leave poor Carlo alone.
because you,
No.
Billy Bob,
Gabriel Rockhill is the full name of the scholar we were referencing, Shaniqua. Gabriel Rockhill.
It's true. I don't have the energy.
No,
Yeah.
I have to defend Carlo
To defend
because
myself.
you, Billy Bob, you said in the same sentence, basically the academics of the Frankfurt School, who were academics who thought they were doing well, they were smart people. I won't call them philosophers, but mentioning them on the same page as Timothy fucking Snyder, who's basically just the anti-com. He's the level. Who was the guy who did Gulag Archipelago? He's basically that in modern times.
Yeah.
He's the
Solzhenitsyn,
Solzhenitsyn of our age. All of the scare stories, all of the Soviets, they rape you, they're gonna kill you. All of that is him. That's not the same. Absolutely not the same. Yeah. He's just still an anti-Soviet warrior,
Well,
like
as a
30
historian,
years.
and I mean, I would say their work is symbiotic. You know, you have the historian being promoted, winning all the awards, being elevated to the highest level, and then you have academia, saying the same thing, and it's a full frontal assault on people's consciousness, on people's opinions, on people's understanding of history and how things work, and again, to suspect that the Western oligarchy isn't concerned or involved with trying to manipulate people's opinions and understanding about history and politics. Like, you got to wake up to that reality. Now, Leo, that brings me to one of your posts I just recently saw. You talked about how you were like 9 or 10 in China, and your parents were really profoundly moved by this great radio station that was preaching freedom and prosperity.
Yeah, I was 9 or 10. My parents were going to grad school for theoretical physics, and I remember them talking very passionately, like really, really passionately about these new ideas that they're hearing about democracy and about freedom from a radio station, from a radio station coming from the West. It must have been from the U.S. And they were really into it, and they're kind of traumatized people a little bit, but they always felt that they were better than the common people. We come from a very educated family. We are excellent people. We are very intelligent, very educated, and I mean, all of it plays a role, right? And so, I mean, that is the main reason why I left the U.S. and left China and went to the U.S. and I'm today in Europe. I mean, that's basically my entire life is a CIA psyop.
Because that was definitely probably Voice of America or one of its affiliates that was being
Radio Free Asia or something.
Yeah.
It's one of those radio stations. Yeah, one of those radio stations that together played a major role, central role, I would say, in fomenting, in derailing the popular discontent, which became the coup attempt of 1989 of the Tiananmen Square. A culmination of all these years of hard work that the Radio Free Asia has been doing, propagating to these impressionable, idealistic young students.
We had
I think the comment below has some relevance.
Okay.
it's from you, right? There's
No,
not
it's
another
from
Carlo
Rosie.
Parcelli in the comment section.
It's from my wife.
Oh,
But I think it's absolutely true. And I want to add one other thing to the Frankfurt School notion is, look, anybody who's read, Minimal Moralia or any of Eclipse of Reason, any of Horkheimer's or Dialectic of Enlightenment, any of their major works, common sense tells you that they're only going to influence 0.0001% of the American population, for example, because most people don't give a rat's rectum what they're saying in those books, and so for the CIA to waste their money, for U.S. intelligence to waste their money on the Horkheimers and the Walter Benjamins and the
Well,
you know, the other Frankfurt School members, who really were outside any kind of popular influence. It's just the whole notion to me is absurd.
It's
You
not
think there
absurd
is-
at all. It's
you
not
think
absurd at all. I'll tell you why. That
They had no
0.01. That I'll tell you why it's not absurd at all. Because that 0.01% are the shakers and the movers. Are
No,
the
they're
people?
not.
Yes, they are. Yes, they
No,
are.
they're not. They're Charles Bernstein and his little cadre.
Listen,
of
listen.
language poets.
As I said earlier, it's not only the Frankfurt School. It's a New York school. It's a Paris school. It is all of intellectual production.
Well, now
during
the
the Cold War.
Now
During the
you're
Cold
throwing
War.
in other. Now you're throwing in other schools. And
I did earlier.
I know.
The
I see
CCF.
that. But I'm saying
the CCF. They operated in like 70 countries, 80 countries, or something like that. I mean, how can you think that this is absurd? Think about how much money.
If their writings and their works are used to influence are used by the elites to influence the general population, which I think is an absurd notion.
They don't need to influence popular.
Then that's on the elites. That's not on these people. They have the right to they have the right to those expressions. This whole notion that they're being co-opted is absurd. These people
it's not absurd at all.
It is absurd.
The opposite of absurd.
Why would their writing be so?
It makes absolute sense.
Why would their writing be so dense? Why would their writing be so uncompromising?
Look, what you have
Carlo. You're not thinking in a bigger picture. The entire ecosystem, the entire academic ecosystem was shaped by the activities of the CCF. The entire ecosystem of Cold War Western intelligentsia was fundamentally shaped by anti-Stalinism and anti-Russia, anti-Soviet Union.
Look, I just want to calmly add some.
All of it. No, there's just one thing. Let me make one point.
Right,
how much money did the U.S. spend fighting the Korean War, fighting the Vietnam War, funding fascists in South America to massacre communists by the hundreds of thousands? How much money did they spend trying to do all of these things to destroy socialism wherever it bloomed, right? Why would they not turn the would-be vanguard leaders of the West, the would-be Lenins of Germany, why would they not try to turn the would-be revolutionaries into these semiotics, language, personal, individual identity focused intellectuals that write books that most people cannot understand? That's precisely part of the movement, the shaping of Cold War and Western intelligentsia is the unreadability. The unreadability that you mentioned, the denseness, the opaqueness of their work is part of the shaping of this entire ecosystem. To remove,
be kidding me.
To stop talking about politics,
negative dialectic,
to stop talking about politics in terms that a common person can understand.
That's an absurd notion.
No, it isn't.
That's an absurd notion. That comes from a basic doctrinaire position that has to fit everything into its pre-described concepts. It's absurd. It's just absurd.
I could bring examples from my country, but that would bore the watchers.
I had first-hand experience.
Let me tell you a history of your country. 1930s, Earl Browder's CPUSA, the Communist Party USA, had 70,000 members, fully with Stalin. Now you have Answer Coalition, PSL, fucking Code Pink. Tell me what happened, in your words, between those two positions, because those people read exactly the shit that we're talking about.
No, they don't. You think the people at Code Pink? I have experience with people at Code Pink. They don't read what you're talking about. They have
So what happened?
They have no interest in it.
So what happened with the mass
because
movement?
the interest is just minimal.
So what happened?
The interest in, I mean, to take some of these texts that you're talking about, you're probably talking about Derrida, and you're probably talking about Foucault and all of that.
Exactly, we are.
You got to let that stuff live, man. It's not like you can't shoehorn all this into this little comfortable notion that you have about how they were duped or
Carlo, I'm challenging you to tell me your
absurd.
notion. From Browder's,
just
look, I've already heard that it's absurd.
You about human nature.
You're talking. All right,
you
now we're down to the human nature, which is always a losing argument. But please tell me your version. 70,000 member Browder Communist Party USA to today's Joe Sims joke of a party. What happened? In your words, what happened?
Well, what happened was that people put out this notion of Stalin's purges.
Where did that come from?
That came from U.S. and British intelligence and everybody else.
That's what we're talking about.
Everybody else that had an interest.
And how did they get their message across?
And the imperialism.
How did they get their message across?
Yes, but I'm saying there are people with real influence there, not that.
I understand what you're saying, but
influence comes
they
from.
call them Zions. Anarchist magazines were
I've heard lectures. I've read all these books about Adorno and all these other people, and that's not fair. What they're talking about is what they put on the page, what Adorno and Horkheimer put on the page. You can't shoehorn this stuff in like that.
Okay,
listen, I had direct experience with Voice of America.
You don't see the influence train. I understand that. But are they stupid or incompetent because they also funded anarchist Zions? The CIA did that just to get a couple of hippies to go on drugs. Do you think that's what they did? That's why they spent the billions? Are they stupid? These ideological leaderships, within...
They've just got more money than they know what to do with.
Oh, okay, so incompetent.
So I would say, I think one of the ways in which their great work, so I can say their work is great, and I'm not going to argue with Carlo that their work was not great. I just say that it wasn't threatening to the status quo. And, anybody that wants to do higher education and study, politics and sociology have to spend years reading these people and to understand them. And then they go into, these really, really, exclusive debate classes, and they debate this minutia of what Horkheimer meant here when he said this. And no, he said this. And all of that is perfect for the ruling class because you're not being revolutionary.
They do that with Immanuel Kant. They do that with Hegel. I did it personally with Hegel and Immanuel Kant when I was in university. Jesus Christ. That's what dialectic is all about.
Yeah, but you think this happens on a bookshelf or in a bubble and it has no effect on the real world. And I think that you're losing a whole influence.
Those people don't really have an effect on the real world.
You're not thinking about the entire train influence. We're talking about the entire academic institutions and their curriculums and their the books that they read. All of it has been shaped fundamentally. Besides all of the useful, all the good work that these people have done, what connects them is this deep anti-Soviet Union. This Hannah Arendt idea of authoritarianism, of fascism is a personality, and all this psychoanalysis and all of this equating communism with fascism. That started with Hannah Arendt.
I'll tell you, Shane.
That started all this entire attitude of the Western left. No, I don't care if PSL people read Horkheimer or not. Horkheimer has shaped the entire academic institutions.
Oh my God, that's so diluted. I don't know how to respond. But you don't think there are elements in what Stalin did that could be interpreted that way?
Well, see, I think you're still under the influence of all of these things that were put into place by the CCI.
Just had his birthday.
I think you are precisely a good Western leftist who is still in the trap set by the CCF.
I'm not in any
All right.
trap. I'm not in
Oh,
any party.
you're free.
I don't
You are
call
free
my-
I don't want
I don't
this-
call
You
myself
are
a
immune.
communist.
You are immune.
I don't call
Exactly. You're not
myself
talking
a
to a
communist
communist,
or
and I don't
Stalinist
want this
because
to get personal.
I don't want to be shoehorned into something like that. That's why I don't do
Right.
it. I want my
Yep.
You are free.
freedom. And
You are
that's what I'm
free.
talking about with these people. That's what I'm talking about with all these writers. They
All right.
wanted their freedom. They wanted their freedom
Oh.
to say what they had to say in their heads, and they maintained that freedom. Believe me, they're
That's
freer
way
than you
too
guys
American for
are.
me. That's
In your thinking, they're way freer than you guys are. You
that's
guys,
basically
you guys
exactly
are ridiculous. Everything gets
That's exactly
everything
what-
gets pushed down into this this microcosm.
all right. When I get
That's
the
why.
opportunity,
That's
I'm glad.
why
I'm
Gus
glad that-
made that comment that on that show 2 weeks ago that my falling asleep was the most interesting thing that happened on the show, because that's where the
I'm glad
conversation was
Carlos-
going.
I'm glad Carlo's back in action. By the way, can I answer Shaniqua's question once everybody's a bit chill? Because, okay, thank you. So, in my country, basically, 1950s, everything got rebuilt. We had our leader, the father of Hungarian communism, Rákosi. It doesn't matter. Stalin died. He got summoned to the Soviet Union, and he had to stay there because he refused to renounce Stalin. He died in Moscow, that guy. So we had Kádár János. But under him, the MSMP, the party, already began to fracture. And believe me, they read all the Western works already. And especially in the 1990s, we had like 6 fracture parties. After that, there's one inherent, like MSP, the Socialist Party of today. They're in every way equivalent to the German Greens, in every fucking way. They have nothing to do with original theory. And they didn't get there one day from the other. And it wasn't just the failure of the Soviet Union or the death of Stalin or the secret speech, which they used to amplify this shit. Look, I mean, what did that fucking snitch George Orwell say? It's the sign of, that's what I hear from Carlo, the sign of intellectual strength or honesty to criticize the Soviet Union. Seriously, the first socialist state, it was fresh out of his crib, and you have the intellectual fucking freedom to criticize their mistakes, which they made, Carlo. They made mistakes, but it's an utter mischaracterization that followed the death of Stalin and broke the US and the Hungarian communist movement in fucking half. And you say that has nothing to do with the intellectual circles.
Well, Orwell is directly related to that.
As
Billy Bob said, when you study the Frankfurt School, you're talking about sociology and politics. That's where you learn the Frankfurt School. You do not learn it in the United States in any kind of degree in political theory.
I was learning.
That's not in there.
I was explaining my examples.
Sociology, I have never seen a syllabus that focuses on the Frankfurt School in sociology.
I was talking about
upon it. I don't know. Well, you know where you study the Frankfurt School? In philosophy and literature. Those are the 2 places. The most influential guy is Walter Benjamin. He's studied in literature classes. Walter Benjamin. So you're talking about a whole different arena in which they operate. They don't operate in the arena you're claiming they operate in.
No, I accept that correction, Carlo. And you're right. Philosophy is a more accurate. I haven't studied those things. I studied other things in college, but I've heard Rock Hill's his kind of his life story, how he was doing labor work on a farm in Kansas, and he wanted to study the most critical, radical kind of thinking. So he went over to the French school and he studied there. And these are the things that he's learned. So we might be able to get him on our program sometime.
I think Jeremy Turner's. Yep.
Can I just make one point? Can we look at the reality of world global revolutionary movements? Right.
Yeah.
This anti-Stalinism, this anti-crimes of Stalin, exists only in the Western part of the world. You talk to a communist in Vietnam, you talk to a communist in China, you talk to a communist in Peru, you talk to a communist anywhere besides Europe and North America and Australia. It does not exist.
Yeah, it was designed for us. The leadership, 1990.
So what explains this?
What explains it?
1990. quick anecdote, Carlo, and then you're next. 1990, okay, the People's Republic fell, and the former leadership of the Communist Party, they get into different things, but everybody watches on TV fucking, who's that name? Noam Chomsky having an interview with Foucault, and they think now we're up in the sophisticated academia, and they got fucking dumbed down to shit. They become useless academics, and that's why their party become defunct, all of them. Just my point from my part of the world.
And to answer Leo, they're different cultures. I mean, look
Different
at Vietnam, for Christ's sake. I look at Vietnam, and all I see now are Western entrepreneurs and huge hotels and huge buildings and the Western banks all over Vietnam.
What does that have to do with what we're talking about? I'm talking about the communists.
That has everything to do.
I'm talking
with
about the communists, the revolutionaries, the left of the entire globe.
See, you want to shoehorn yourself into the left. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure that any of the Frankfurt School thought of themselves as left in the way you think of yourself as left.
I'm pretty sure they did, but right now
No, I'm pretty sure
debated if they are on the left now.
You know, if you read Negative Dialectics, you point out one word to me in that whole book, 546 pages or something, that talks about how Adorno's talking about being on the left. It's just absurd.
So
you guys got to read these. That's Rockfield's problem.
No.
He never read those. He never read the books that he's saying these people.
Of course he did.
He didn't.
He learned like Latin to read.
I'll give you an anecdote. There's a guy here who's was a book reviewer. He might still review books for the Washington Post. His name is Michael Derda, and he was at the Sorbonne in 1968, and he was really hostile to what was happening to that. He's at the Sorbonne because he's an arch conservative. Because the literature he likes is tea and doily literature, and that's the impression I get from Rockhill.
So
he's he's a very conservative guy. He's a very reactionary sort of person. Yeah.
That doesn't really contradict anything Rockhill's saying. What Rockhill's doing, he's looking at the big picture. He's seeing that there's a theory industry, and he's saying how the theory industry is shaped to benefit, the wealthy ruling establishment that dominates in the West. And how could it be any other way? Like
cultural hegemony. Come on.
That's an absurd argument.
What's absurd about that?
Okay. So tell me.
Because it doesn't have any influence. It's too complex. It's
political
too
theory.
Too rich to have.
It doesn't have any influence. Then explain why there's not a single leftist intellectual in the West that looks favorably upon existing socialism. The only people that enjoy
I don't know that's true.
The only people in the West who enjoy a platform.
Influence.
The only people in the West.
You can't possibly.
The only people in the West who enjoy a platform, who enjoy speaking engagements at Cambridge and Harvard. The only people in the West from the left are people like Zizek, like Chomsky, are people like this who are vehemently against the Soviet Union and against China. I mean, how do you explain this? Zero.
I'm glad you made that clear, because Carlo, there are other, so-called intellectuals on the right who always cite Ayn Rand, right? We're not talking about those people. Of course, they've never heard of Adorno or Horkheimer. We're talking about the modern left, and it had a tangible effect on them. I really think that's basically fact.
But Chomsky's not the Frankfurt School. He's straightforward. He's straightforward in outside of linguistics. Are you going to say his linguistics was influenced by?
No, we were not talking about academics. Politics.
But he's written many tracts criticizing U.S. foreign policy. Now Chomsky saved my fucking life.
They criticize
Chomsky
U.S.
saved my life.
Policy.
I'm not going to say any bad thing about Chomsky. He saved my fucking life. He and Bernard.
Great. That's great. That's great. That's great for you.
When I was a kid,
I reserve the intellectual freedom to say bad things about Chomsky.
I was like days from going for my physical, but I had read Chomsky, and I fought tooth and nail not to go to Vietnam. That's great. Because I knew Chomsky, because I'd read Chomsky, and he made an influence on me.
He influenced me as well. I read his book when I was a teenager. But at the same time, he said Lenin was a traitor to the socialist movement.
Well, that's his opinion. That's his opinion. He's free to have
but
his
what
own
we are
opinion.
saying is that it's funny how
you guys
only
sound
those
like
opinions...
You sound like the caricatures of the Stalin you want to defend. You sound like his caricature. Made by the
I'm
West.
okay with that.
You do. You sound just like it.
But we're
I'm
our
just amazed at how
Carlo,
closed-minded you are. When it
our
comes to
suggestion is maybe Chomsky wouldn't be as popular if he had a different opinion about Stalin. That's what we're suggesting. Just like we don't
that's absurd. He's not popular. He's popular because he saved people's lives. When they read him, they knew enough to not follow U.S. foreign
So
policy.
it's all organic. People's popularity is organic.
That's so obvious. How could you deny that? Stalin doesn't play any huge role in Chomsky's oeuvre.
80% of Chomsky's 100 books is U.S. foreign policy evil bad. I think 100% agree with that. But the little 20% where he's a little anarcho-syndicalist and all existing socialism is the deranged, degenerate worker state, that also has an effect. That's part of his personality, part of his politics. And I don't think...
And anybody who wants to know what Chomsky thinks and finds him respectable is going to search out, what does Chomsky think about China? What does Chomsky think about the USSR? And once they find out he doesn't care for it, well, that's the same exact opinion they adopt. That's how it works. It's the theory industry.
And so they're free to adopt that opinion. Jesus Christ, man.
To their own detriment.
You sound like an authoritarian. You sound like a pure authoritarian. That's
the authoritarian personality has come here.
That's an authoritarian way of thinking.
Okay, well, I think authority is necessary in order to overcome oppression.
You're free to say no. Chomsky is wrong about the USSR. You're free to do that.
I think that was a historic moment.
Say, well, what he says is probably right. You're free to do that.
No, but I mean, the reality is that we have a intellectual ecosystem in the West, which zero voices that support the actually existing socialism in the world exists.
Well, you guys are here.
I'm not in the establishment. I have been canceled from every university that I've spoken in. They used to invite me to university.
He's a Chinese
in Germany. I'm not in academia. That's why I'm not in academia.
I'm Eastern European, where some of my people agree with me, but none of the leadership in academia or politics agree with me. They have all been insulated by this.
I've been canceled by other university too, from a totally different perspective.
That has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Yes, it does. It has everything to do with it.
But like objectively speaking, just no objective appraisal of Joseph Stalin exists in the West. Yeah. When we look at Churchill, when we look at Thomas Jefferson owned slaves. He had a slave's tooth taken out of his mouth and put it into his mouth, right? I mean, when we look at these historical figures, we say they lived in complicated times and things were difficult. And, we have to look at their character and their actions. We have to look at it, with a balanced view, right?
No.
Churchill is still regarded as a hero. Churchill is still regarded as a hero. And here's a man who said, Churchill said the superior races should dominate those lands populated by inferior peoples. Right, Churchill made a decision that caused
that's identity politics. That's exactly what my wife pointed out.
The famines
you guys
in
want
India
to talk identity politics? That's identity politics.
The famines in India that killed like 200 million people. 200 million people from the policies of Churchill. But we regard Churchill with a nuance, understanding the entire West. The entire West does, but zero such.
I don't.
Zero such
West. I don't.
Balanced view is given to Stalin. at all.
We're talking about the ecosystem. We're not talking about you personally. We're saying there's an ecosystem which exists, and it exists to turn people's opinions against actual existing socialism.
As an alternative, may I suggest, because I also grew up with Chomsky. I was influenced by him, and I parted ways pretty much the same time as Michael Parenti did with him and his school of thought. But what you can do in modern times, I know it's difficult because of the sanctions and all that, but you can get on VK, Russian social media. You could talk to members of the KPRF or any communists in Russia and ask them about Stalin. That will get you way out of this Western stupid bubble. Way out.
Well,
I just think
you can do that.
Anti-Stalinism, anti-USSR was deliberately inculcated within our, the theory industry, and part of the reason was these critical schools, the French critical school, the German critical school, and these thinkers who were acceptable to the ruling establishment because they did indict and anybody that fought out, what do you think about Stalin? They said there's bad. And it's
the ruling establishment that you want to go after. It's not those people.
Well, I mean, understand what we're saying. We have some nuance. We're saying that, hey, they weren't bad people, and they had good criticisms of the system. But what made them palatable to the system was their opinion on Stalin, on the Soviet Union, on actual existing socialism, and how it's just as bad as what we have here, and it's not an option. It's not an alternative. That's what makes them acceptable.
Were they entitled to their
entire Western left away from?
Sure, they could be entitled, but they weren't just entitled to their opinion like me and you were. They were promoted, right? They were their work was promoted. They were
like the 12.
Look at Michael Parenti. Michael Parenti
they're not that kind of promoted. I mean,
look at Michael Parenti. Michael Parenti is just about the only.
That's 2019. That's his grave in 2019. They bring 10,000 carnations to his grave every year. Was he that kind of bloodthirsty tyrant that you've heard of? 1953, that's the largest funeral. Do you think they were all forced? Because I don't believe that.
No, I don't think they were forced or coerced necessarily. Jeez.
Look at Michael Parenti. Michael Parenti is just about the only author, the only thinker that is not anti-Soviet Union and that supports existing socialism. And look at the popularity, the platform that he enjoys. He hasn't reached his 5,000 friends limit on Facebook.
Well, I'll become his friend. I like Michael Parenti.
Yeah.
So,
no, I mean, how can you deny that there is a Cold War objective to turn Western leftists against the Soviet Union? I mean, that is just pure logic.
But you see, the thing is, you can't take individual people like that and I'm
not talking about individual people. I'm talking about an ecosystem, an entire structure of Western academia,
and
of the academic industrial complex.
In creating that ecosystem.
But
read Grover Fur.
I mean, what are you talking? You're not allowing people to express their own opinions?
No.
Is that the notion here?
I don't think that happens.
Your opinions are shaped by the CIA.
How these voices specifically
My opinions are shaped by the CIA. Yes. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so are mine.
Yes.
So are mine.
So was mine until I broke out of it. I went to liberal arts university. I studied French theory. I studied all these people. I went to all of these classes. I read all these books. I was influenced by it as well. Don't take it as a personal offense. I came from the same Western. I was educated in the U.S. I went to a pretty expensive fucking private art school. Like, I studied all this stuff. I was influenced as well until I dug myself out of that hole.
Look, I'm just a stupid designer with about 2 bookshelves, most of them digital, so I'm not as cultured as you guys were. But if I turn on the telly to watch an action movie or a Marvel, I am also influenced by fucking CIA. We're talking about different strata. And what came from the Frankfurt School got the left leadership into this trance that led to, everybody under them was influenced by them.
But you're leaving out the great majority of the dialectic that these people were involved in.
What's the great majority?
Critical thinking, right? You got to think critically. Critical thinking.
But they don't do it.
Leaving it all out and shoehorning it into this anti-Soviet, anti-Stalin
I'm glad to learn that we're the ones who are not thinking
people's
critically.
life's work, their life's work.
To answer
shoehorning it into this.
Shaniqua's question and Carlo's.
That's the very definition of their cliche of what
the
Stalin
paper trail.
was.
The paper trail exists. The paper trail exists.
That's
their
not true.
paychecks. All of these people, their paychecks from the CCF exist.
And that's not true, Dust.
Their paychecks.
Grover Fur spent.
They were funded. Yes, it is
trail
true.
does not exist.
I'd like to answer the question about Grover
On
Fur.
Wikipedia, I can show you on Wikipedia.
I've read books on it.
Okay, Grover Fur was
in fact,
allowed access.
I just finished reading Cloak and
Guys,
Gown.
this is a dead end.
I just finished reading Cloak and Gown.
But I'd like to shift the attention to the question because Shaniqua asked, should she read Grover Fur? And Dust James had a comment on him. And he's true. He's persona non grata in academia today. But when he went into the Soviet archives, which he studied for years, he learned Cyrillic. He went to the Polish archives, who are the greatest liars about Soviet history, just to compare. He wasn't a communist. He wasn't a socialist. He wasn't a Stalinist, the made-up word for modern communist, by the way. He just wanted to see, okay, all of these lies, are they true? He couldn't find a single one, and he documented it. That's why he's persona non grata in modern academia, and that's why you should read him, from beginning to end. Blood Lies was the one, and Khrushchev lied. I mean, I've read two, but
so
Blood Lies was the one against Timothy Snyder, the most punchable man, right?
So Timothy Snyder wrote Bloodlands, and then Grover Fur wrote Blood Lies as a response, detailing all the systemic falsehoods. So
to this day, people throw it in my face. The Holodomor massacre, which was done by 3 fucking Ukrainian Nazis, they originated this theory. They throw the Katyn massacre into my face, which was done by fucking Nazi officers, and you won't know it because that's what everybody everywhere, including Wikipedia, including movies, everybody tells you. And that came from somewhere.
Yeah.
That's the point. That's the point.
So, it's an interesting discussion. We definitely have not agreement on the panel, and I feel bad because 3 against 1 isn't.
Yeah, that's true. I don't want it to get ugly, but I'm glad that Carlo's back in fighting form.
I'm tremendously glad he's back, and I'd like to disagree. And Carlo's, definitely passionate. But we want to try and do it productively, and sometimes it's difficult. Go ahead, Carlo.
We got carried away.
Let me give you an anecdote.
Go.
I live in Washington, D.C., folks, or right outside now. Back in the I guess it was the late 1970s. I was a young and upcoming poet, and I studied Ezra Pound, and my mentor was a guy who translated Greek drama with Ezra Pound when Pound was at St. Elizabeth's, and I got invited to a place called the Moore Funhouse East, and the Moore Funhouse East was a salon run by a man named John Pauker, who was a member who worked for the Voice of America, but I suspect he worked for the Central Intelligence Agency. And he and a man named Reed Whittemore and another man you may have heard of called James Jesus Angleton published Furioso when they were at Yale, which was a literary magazine. Now, you can imagine James Angleton and John Pauker and Reed Whittemore, who was a World War II pilot, very patriotic guy, and a poet. I would go down to the salon, and I would meet with all these people, and I would talk with them. And I did it maybe 3 or 4 times at these gatherings of people having cocktails and that sort of thing. And I didn't like it. I didn't like the a pro-American foreign policy, anti-Eastern European flavor of it. Just didn't like it. You had Paul Lawson, who published Eastern European exiled poets, and you had this guy Voyagist, John Clare, who published a magazine that had this really anti-Soviet bent to it. I didn't like it. I thought this is propaganda.
Oh, 70s.
Okay?
So we were still in the
And
Soviet bloc, right?
I never went back.
But the question is, this is the 70s, right? So this is
Yeah.
actually existing Eastern Bloc socialism. Go ahead.
Yes. And I stopped going, which obviously I was being promised, oh, you'll have readings all over Europe. You can travel. where your poetry would get published and all of that. In fact, something was supposed to be published, and after I left, they didn't publish it. They
Okay.
decided differently. One of the major poetry magazines in New York, William Stafford was the editor at the time, and so I walked away from all that. So I know what it is to walk away from that stuff. And then I began to discover people with more and richer views of things, richer views of the world than these people, like like Robert Conquest and people like that. And I embraced those people, and those people included the Frankfurt School. Now, at that time, I knew nothing about the background of the Frankfurt School. I was a free thinker. I loved Ezra Pound's poetry. I hated his fascism, but I loved his poetry at the same time.
You
I
met
thought he was
Robert
a great
Conquest?
poet. Right, Robert Conquest.
I know, but did you meet that guy? Robert?
I may have at the salon
Okay.
because he was a poet as well as an idiot.
Yeah.
And so I know what it means to reject what you're talking about, and I've rejected it. So I resent saying I'm influenced by the CIA. I resent it to my core because I gave up a career. Now I'm persona non grata in this country, and I'm a damn good poet, but I have no place really. I can't. I'm even turned down for reading engagements at the university I went to, and everybody else in this city turns me down for readings. I haven't been able to get a reading out of anybody for 20 years because I do think like that. I do have a kind of open door policy when it comes to thought, but I don't see ultimately that open door policy here on this panel today. I don't relate to it in that way.
I understand.
And I just wanted to point that out.
Good, fair point. I mean, I think you feel like you've been accused of being on CIA payroll or something, and nobody accused you of that. I really think there's a huge difference. My thought was, influenced by the CIA. There's zero denying that, and maybe we went too far. Okay.
No one alive is not influenced by the CIA.
Yeah.
One way or another.
And Carlo, obviously communists think that
I watched Homeland,
communism is the only solution. And so if you see the idea that communism is the only solution as a little thing that, we're bigger than that, like Horkheimer are bigger than this little communism thing. Like if you think that, then you have to understand that as communists, we see that as kind of at least tacitly aligning yourself with the ruling establishment, because the ruling establishment isn't going to be threatened by anything other than communism. So, but
that's your ideological struggle.
Yeah, no, exactly.
That's not mine.
Yes,
we get it. Yeah. And so when it's not yours, we think that you're tacitly giving support by rejecting the only thing that can possibly make a necessary serious change to things. And so
I've gotten so much out of these people that you're criticizing. So much.
Yeah, so have I.
Critical thinking.
Yeah,
we've all learned from John.
Leo, I haven't seen much critical thinking coming out of you today.
No, we're the only people who are actually doing the critical thinking here.
Hey, we don't have to.
Right.
We don't have to do that personal shit.
But like,
you're the only one.
They call us authoritarians. We're Stalinists.
I do exercise a little bit of authority.
I didn't do that. I walked away from the people. I walked away from the people that were doing that, and I didn't know shit at the time. I was 22.
But
I didn't like it.
Carlo,
okay,
you
are free,
you can
Carlo.
understand our perspective, our ideological perspective?
Yeah, I do.
In that, people that reject communism as a solution and call it authoritarian, they're only supporting either on purpose or on accident, the status quo and Western imperialism. That's kind of that's our criticism. That's our criticism of anarchism.
I've never supported any of that. I've
I don't-
never even been close to supporting that.
No, but
mock or laugh at my
Why-
They
elders,
don't even like me. They don't want me around.
but the moment the
but
authoritarian
by attacking
personality
the
was
only
born
thing
here.
that can conceivably come
Oh,
against
please,
that.
let's drop this.
All right.
You guys don't
fair.
have no idea what I'm talking about.
All right. Well,
Okay.
I understand.
You can't do it. I'm not gonna press you any longer.
Okay.
I'm tired. I'm old. I'm sick. I can't do it anymore. Okay.
We just added like several years to your life with this program. You,
You
got,
got
your
butt-
juices
butter
flowing,
out.
your heart got going, adrenaline got pumping. It was good. We appreciate the back and
No, you
forth.
didn't.
Oh, I did.
It
Well,
it
I
was
enjoyed it.
was a
I
big
hope-
waste
I
of
hope
my
you all had
time,
a good
to tell
time.
you the truth.
All right. We better reconvene on Friday. Leo, thanks for coming. Carlo, it was good to see you. Ben, thanks as always. So yeah, we're gonna shoot for Friday. I do have some great guests we're trying to confirm. So I'll leave it at that. But
Yeah.
we look
Shout
forward
out to
Friday.
the returning Shanika and Jeremy.
Dust
I
James.
remember.
See, Dust James
Dust-
would probably like to get in on this, and he would probably be an ally of Carlos. So
Yes, he always is.
we can definitely do that on another show. Okay, see you guys next time.